This webinar is brought to you by MatchPal, the only specialty-specific residency advising platform. We help you match your dream specialty by providing one-on-one personalized guidance from expert resident advisors. Schedule your free consultation at matchpalmedical.com.
Slowly get going with some introductions. Thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Daniel, part of the MatchPal leadership team. I'm really excited to present some of my favorite and closest colleagues and friends on this panel today. And this whole point of today is just to give preclinical medical students a slightly different perspective from hopefully what they're hearing at school and from others, and just kind of hear from people who are residents, and actually in the case of Samantha, fellow, kind of people who have gone through this, who have kind of lived it, and also have experienced a lot of advising other students on how to succeed throughout the kind of first couple years of medical school to set yourself up for residency. So let's get going with some introductions. So I'll start off, like I said, my name is Daniel. I'm an integrated IR resident in Northwell, New York City. And I'm really excited to introduce some of my colleagues. So I'll start off with Chris. Maybe Chris, you'll give an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm a PGY2, a first-year derm resident at Henry Ford in Detroit.
Very nice. Ian.
Hey everyone, I'm Ian. I'm a first-year resident, diagnostic radiology, Medical College of Wisconsin.
Awesome. And Samantha.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. I am a first-year pediatric hospital medicine at Montefiore Einstein in the Bronx.
Very cool. All right. So very diverse backgrounds. David was actually unable to make it today, but he'll be around for future sessions. For those of you that might be considering PM&R, he's a fantastic resource. So, again, like I was saying before, very diverse set of backgrounds and kind of perspectives here for today. So for those of you that don't know us and who we are at MatchPal, we're specialty specific, 100% resident run consulting and advising company, and we love helping students succeed at what they are doing in medical school and beyond. We feel like we've come from backgrounds that have shown us, either personally or through the people that we were friends with, that schools can do a pretty bad job oftentimes at providing advising. And so we're here to change that. We're here to deliver peer-to-peer, up-to-date advice to you guys, whether that is through studying resources, personal statement and document revisions, interview prep, anything that you need for success as far as residency goes. We're here to make your life easier and to give you advice that actually works. So feel free to reach out to us now or in the future. We're here to, we're always here, and we have like mentors from every specialty. So no matter what you're interested in, we're here to help. But enough about that. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So on the agenda, we have a couple of different things. Talk about like how to study during your preclinical years. We'll talk a little bit about choosing a specialty. We'll also discuss what kind of activities and experiences are worth your time and which ones might not be. And then I guess the most important thing in the end, right, really finding mentors, right? That's kind of what we're here for, but also how to find mentors outside of MatchPal and in your own arenas. And lastly, we'll touch a little bit about research and the importance of it and how to go about it. So let's start off by kind of addressing probably one of our clients' most frequently encountered, I guess, fears or things that they question is like, what happens now that USMLE is pass fail? And what do we do, right? So, USMLE historically was kind of like this like gating item between specialties, like it determined a lot about your career trajectory and what specialty you can and couldn't do. Now it's pass fail, right? So, I mean, maybe Ian, you want to give us a little bit of perspective on where we think, what the implications you think this might be on like current first and second year students? Like what should they be thinking about as far as like, where does the priority shift now go to?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of the obvious answer would be that step 2 is going to take a lot more importance when determining who to give interviews to, who to consider highly for ranking in the residency process. But that doesn't mean that step 1 shouldn't be taken seriously at this point. So we're already seeing an increase in the fail rate from step 1 from, low single digit percentiles up to almost 10%. So that's something that is a little bit scary as an early medical student, and should kind of be a forewarning that this is still an exam to take seriously and an exam that's going to lay the foundation for you going forward into step 2. If you prepare really well for step 1, your preparation for step 2 is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about that. the foundation that you're going to put for yourself. I mean, it's only going to carry you through step 2 and beyond, honestly, as an intern. I mean, it's going to reflect in your ability to care for patients too. So, I think it's definitely an exam still worth preparing for. Chris, you got any ideas on resources that, maybe resources that you were really excited to use as like a first and second year medical student to prepare for either coursework, exams, or for the USMLE?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty established, first line of resources that everyone uses, or almost everyone uses at my medical school. We talk about the basic level of first aid, and you have your video lecture series like Boards and Beyond, Pathoma, as well as Sketchy. And all those are like really good to use. And then obviously UWorld, starting maybe even second year, third, fourth year. It's a lot to use, and then you can supplement that on top of that with like specialized Anki decks. So if you just hit all of them or as much of them as you can, I mean, it'll carry over to your step 1, your step 2, and even your clerkship for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to like using the resources that people historically have had success with, which is the ones that Chris just talked about, and then also getting them integrated in your study plan really early, right? So, figuring out like, how am I going to get 5 or 10 questions done a day, every day, right? Whether I'm on cardio and I'm doing 10 cardio questions, whether I'm doing poem, however it is, make it a habit to do questions every single day. If you're going to use flashcards, which honestly, I think I'm biased because I did use flashcards. If you're going to use flashcards, how am I going to get them incorporated into my daily workflow, right? So even if you can't accomplish, I know it looks like a lot. There's 4,000 questions in UWorld. There's 25,000 cards in Anking step 1, right? You don't have to finish every single flashcard, right? Similarly, I would argue, for if you really know your stuff, you may not even need to finish every single UWorld question in some cases, right? Although that's probably not the case for most people, but you know what I mean? So it looks like I guess my point is that it looks like a mountain when you're standing at the bottom of it. But when you chip away at it on a daily basis and you make it a slow kind of part of your daily workflow, you look back 6 months later and you're like, wow, I did 10,000 flashcards. I did half of this question bank and my percentages have gone up and I have so much of a better grasp on this stuff. So I think that's a really important thing as well. Samantha, you want to give us a little bit of perspective maybe on, balancing coursework as a preclinical medical student with other activities?
Yes, I view my priority was a lot of the preclinical studies. So a lot of the time, if you're barely making it or like not being able to stay on top of your coursework, maybe shadowing or doing research might not be a great opportunity right now, especially for me, at least going from undergraduate studies to medical school. It felt like a big jump. There was a different style of learning. Anki was the first. Anki was first introduced. So I think giving yourself grace and saying, let me get my bearings in my first year even, really knowing how to figure out your schedule and then adding those supplementary things on top of it, like research, like shadowing. And while it is important, it is very significant if you fail a class. So you don't, and it stays on your record permanently. So you don't want your other activities to overshadow your preclinical studies.
Yeah, I think that actually touched upon a really good point that maybe we didn't mention earlier, like especially now that step 1 is pass fail, right? I mean, like failing the exams in general is always is never ideal and very, very much something that you want to avoid at all costs. Now that it's pass fail, it's like even more so a bigger deal, because before you could, in theory, say if you failed the exam and then you really worked your butt off on the retake and you crushed it and you had a really good reason for why maybe you failed the first time, you could have had you could have tried to demonstrate that you rebounded successfully. But now it's like pass versus fail. You're not able to demonstrate that big of like a jump anymore, right? So the fail, I guess, sticks out even more. It can hurt. It could sting even more on your application. All right. So we're going to try to table, like, if anybody has questions about this stuff, happy to talk a little bit more about it towards the end, but want to cover all of our content for today. All right. I think another big question that we see from our clients and the students that we talk to all the time is that, how do we choose a specialty, especially like first year, second year? So I think I love hearing when I interview students for MatchPal, when I interview students for my residency program, I love getting to know why people chose either radiology or whatever specialty they're going into, right? So I think it would be really cool if each of us here shared a little bit about why we chose our specialty. So maybe Chris, you want to talk a little bit about skin and all things dermatology and how you came to kind of committing to that.
Yeah, so something that I really liked about skin in general, dermatology, is how quick it can be. You know, you can walk into a room, you can see a patient, you can just look at their skin and you instantly know sometimes what's going on. You know what I mean? So then you could have a full visit with the patient, address all their needs in like 3 minutes. You know, so being able to be like a specialist that could be super quick, that's something that's, you know, really, really cool to me. On top of that, I like the more outpatient, you know, workflow, less call, less inpatient stuff. That's something I enjoy. Like the opportunity for procedures, like if you do like Mohs or something, or like excisions, you could do a practice super heavy in that, or you could do something like derm path, or you could do like cosmetics. So there's just like, you know, in one field, there's a whole bunch of different options that you could pursue depending on how you feel about it.
I love that. And I think I want to really like hammer that point home that Chris just mentioned. Like, it is totally okay to pursue a career that fits your dream lifestyle, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with building a career in medicine that, you know, supports whatever activities you like to do outside of medicine, or supports whatever vision for like the type of patient care you want to deliver. Right. So, you know, that's how you prevent burnout. That's how you have a long and successful career. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. And I think don't let anyone tell you that it is frowned upon, that you can't choose an outpatient or private practice specialty or job or anything like that. So just want to put that out there because I'm really big on that kind of stuff. Maybe Samantha, you want to tell us a little bit about how and why you chose pediatrics?
Yeah. It's hard to say whether it was chicken or the egg, whether I kept on looking for pediatric opportunities or they found me. But throughout of my shadowing and undergrad research, I always gravitated towards the pediatric population. One, they are really cute. They always turn your day around. And two, you have a lot of chances that you can do prevention. So I think that's the great part. There's time always to switch their trajectory, or they bounce back. Like, it's very their kids are just so resilient, and you hear that a lot from pediatricians, but it really is that case. And the physiology also is so different. So something that you learn in the ICU in the neonatal stage might be very different from what you see towards the transition into adulthood. So I think that is just really that was really important to me, to be able to see all of these different ranges.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Yeah, I think it's really important to go to ideally, if you can go to a job and something about that job makes you smile, even if it's the kiddos, that's a good thing. You know what I mean? Ian, I know. So me and Ian are both a little bit biased because, you know, we're kind of part of the same specialty. He's diagnostic radiology, I'm interventional, but I still think I do think that, you know, especially now with the new residency, we will share a little bit of a different perspective because the fields are diverging a little bit. So maybe Ian, you want to start off with what got you interested in diagnostics?
Yeah, definitely. So I think my journey to considering radiology went through a couple key questions people should be considering. So one question is, do you want to really be an expert in one body system, or do you want to have the opportunity in residency to work with a variety of body systems? So for me, wanted to work with a variety of body systems. That kind of leads you towards specialties like radiology, maybe IM, EM. You get to see a really wide variety of pathology and physiology. Then another thing I was considering was, okay, I really do enjoy procedures, but how much do I want of that? So I started off thinking interventional radiology. As I learned more about the specialty and shadowed, I saw diagnostic radiologists also do a lot of image-guided procedures. Suddenly, that really opened up as a potential avenue for me. And I discovered that that balance was maybe a little more on the side that I liked rather than interventional radiology, which is very procedure heavy. And then, you know, one of the last things that you can consider is, do you want a lot of direct patient care? Do you want to be indirect as a consultant, or have a little bit of a blend? So from what I was seeing at like the outpatient MSK radiologist, for example, who was one of my big mentors, was he gets to have that consultant role and read a lot of scans. And then later in the day, go do some of these image guided procedures, have that face-to-face interaction, even some sort of longitudinal interaction as well. So for me, it scratched a lot of different itches. And I think you guys should really be considering some of those questions: procedures, degree of patient interaction, which body systems are you working with, things like that.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Yeah, I'll just go really quickly. So, for me, choosing a specialty actually took quite a few bends and turns. I kind of came into medical school loving the idea of procedures in the operating room. I was fascinated by it, but I never in a million years thought I ever had what it takes to be a proceduralist, a surgeon, anything like that. So I was like, okay, well, what job is going to let me be in this exciting room without doing the procedures? I was like, all right, cool. I'm just going to be an anesthesiologist, right? Because I could just be in the OR, look at cool cases happen in front of me, but never have to actually do them. And again, a lot of that was like never having the opportunity to use those skills. And then I did a research project where we actually did a bunch of surgeries on mice. And I was like, wow, I mean, this is not human, but I actually really enjoy this. I could see myself doing something with my hands all day, every day. This was like, it just felt like time flew by. I kind of forgot about where I was and what I was doing besides the task in front of me. And I kind of fell in love with it. So I kind of started looking at all different kinds of surgeries, surgical subspecialties, ended up on vascular surgery, spent a year pursuing that as like a second-year medical student, and then realized that the world of IR is basically all of the minimally invasive aspects of vascular surgery. And I love that because I think, IR is very appropriately poised for the future. I think for the next 20, 30 years, as we look into our careers, it's good to think about, your job security and whether or not, your job is in a position where, it's kind of always at that cutting edge. And I love that IR is kind of serving at that cutting edge of procedural medicine. So that's kind of how I ended up settling for that. But no matter what specialty you end up choosing, I mean, they're all great. And obviously, they're all going to play a very important role in the healthcare system and providing care for very sick people. Regardless, though, these are all kind of different, really good perspectives for you guys to consider early on, because the earlier you get involved, the more you're able to build your CV to show that you're passionate for a certain field, and the more you're able to convince program directors like, hey, this is actually what I want to do, and here's the activities that I've done to support that. Here's an interesting roadmap that we were able to find from from the internet, and kind of, you guys could take a screenshot of this or whatever it is that you want, but it shows like a little roadmap of a little bit of what Ian was talking about, whether you want direct or indirect patient care. Do you want to be more on the procedural side? Obviously, there's different ranges of competitiveness throughout every single category here. And those things, competitiveness is also something that kind of fluxes every few years anyway. But regardless, this is a good general roadmap that you could start off with. I mean, and, you could even start off at the top. I mean, there are some people that I've talked to and that I've talked to both as part of MatchPal and as otherwise, that kind of opt to leave the general role of clinical medicine entirely, and they want to go into more of a research role or consulting role or something like that. So, those things are much less common, but they are options. And if you finish medical school, or you're approaching the end of medical school and you feel like clinical medicine is just a miserable experience for you, which it can be, right? It's not for everyone. That's okay, right? Just know there are options. You didn't just waste 4 years. Like, you can do other things with that, and you can actually have a really fun and meaningful career that doesn't make you like hate your life every day when you go to work because you're not doing something that makes you happy. All right. So once you've kind of decided on a specialty, you want to get involved in certain activities. Chris, maybe we'll go back to you. What are, maybe one or two of your most meaningful activities that you feel like pushed you to the edge when it came to competitiveness? Like, we're not talking about scores or anything like that. We're talking about like really activities that you did that maybe when you were on the interview trail that you felt like stood out as like really like showed program directors that you were like a really qualified applicant for dermatology.
So there's, I think, two things. One super central to like research was I actually took a research year. So instantly it shows that, I'm really committed to the field. I'm willing to essentially go 1 year without pay in order to match into this field, right? Like, so all program directors automatically know you're serious when you're doing that. And then second of all, I had like a summer, and this was all the way back in college, like after my freshman year of college, where I taught English in Russia for like just a summer, like 10 weeks. And then so a lot of programs would ask me about it, and I spun it in a way where it was like, I was really into teaching, you know what I mean? It makes me a better student on the other end. And then I really like that part of like academic medicine where You know, obviously your attendings are teaching you, your senior residents are teaching you, and then you're teaching the residents below you, as well as, you know, the medical students. And I think like that over like anything else besides my research year was like the most talked about thing. So it doesn't have to be directly involved, but I mean, I think it was a little bit easier for me because I had a research year in the first place.
I think on that note, Chris, maybe can you share with the audience what was the thought process behind committing to a research year? Like why did you do it, or like what should students who are interested in a competitive specialty, what should they consider prior to committing to a research year, as far as one, yes or no, should I do one, and two, how do I know if it's like, how do I even find one, or like what's a good research year, like where do I even find that opportunity?
So I think first of all, I was in a very similar position as some of the current medical students are going to be in. So it was literally towards the end of my third year, right? So I already knew I had like a good enough step one score, but you know, you really don't get exposed to a lot of different specialties until like you go through all of your third year. You know what I mean? You could have electives at the end of your third year, and you're like, I just did 2 weeks in nephrology or something, and I didn't had no idea I really liked that, and then now you're already gearing up to apply. You know what I mean? And it's even, you know, harder for these current medical students because, you know, they had to wait until their step two comes back for a lot of different specialties to see what's even available. So it came down to, I was really late on deciding dermatology. I needed a way to show that I was really committed. I did have some research, but it was not related to dermatology. So I needed to, you know, essentially buff up my CV up to, you know, the standards of at least an average applicant in my mind. So for me, it was an easy choice. And, you know, I was, you know, blessed enough to have enough buffer that I could take out extra loans to essentially like finance my research year, because during a research year, you can't take out any loans. You know what I mean? You don't get that opportunity to just be like, oh, I maxed out my loans third year, I'll get additional loans for my research year. They just don't allow you to do that. In order to find a research year, I think the biggest point would probably be a PD that you're associated with. At a lot of MD schools, you just go, you know, you email the program director, you're like, you know, I'm someone who's super interested in this. Do you have any advice for me? I was thinking about taking a research year. Do you have, you know, any suggestions? They can point you in the right direction of typically successful research year programs that are a good fit for you. So there's a lot of research years that are out there that are almost like really predatory, where they'll take you and then they'll work you super hard, but they won't really go to bat for you. So you kind of have to have inside knowledge that you can only get by speaking to people who are like higher up. So that's essentially what I did. I spoke to my PD and he sent out my CV and gave me some recommendations.
That's awesome, Chris. Yeah, I'm really happy that you had such a like a good experience, because I have definitely heard of some bad research years as well, you know. And I think a couple of things that students can look out for, and this applies for research years, but also any research mentor that you're going to work with. You know, look for people that are consistently publishing, right? You know, a lot of people are just going to say yes, they want to help you. Yeah, let's do research, but they don't have a project. They haven't published anything in 5 years. Like that's going to lead to like you wasting a lot of your time, and the likelihood of something publishing afterwards is like, you know, not so high. So yeah, just be careful with who you sign up with. Make sure they're like people that are actually doing and passionate about the thing that you're signing up to help them with. But I don't want to get off track because we have a research slide later. Samantha, maybe tell us one or two of your most meaningful activities, either leadership or otherwise, that was vital for matching into PEDS.
Yeah, one of my I guess my opportunities was for senior medical students. So you applied into the program within your second year, where you have a longitudinal clinic. So you go there at least once a week, your half day. So I knew I wanted to do PEDS, but this was very specific for like a general, like more general specialty. So PEDS, psych, med PEDS, for example, OBGYN. And so I had a clinic section every Thursday, for example, and then I participated in research all year. So I think I had a general idea that I wanted to go into PEDS, and I think focusing more after that was really helpful because I was able to talk about patient experiences even before I did my PEDS clerkship, for example. So I think if you do know what you want to do, go for it. But even if you didn't and you wanted to switch later, and you have this whole narrative, let's say you're applying ortho and you have this whole spiel and this whole picture that you made in your CV, it's okay, because it still shows dedication to the field. It's those traits that are associated with your leadership position, your dedication, your ability to even do research, and all of these skills that you have, it's translational to whatever specialty you ended up choosing. And it's okay to tell people that I used to want to go down this field, but another experience made me switch, and I can apply those skills to my future. So it's never lost time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to definitely find activities that align with whatever we want to do. And of course, that it is better. Like, if I'm interviewing someone for my IR program, I would love to see IR research. But at the same time, if somebody has a really, really like big publication in a big journal that's from a different specialty, but then they have a very legitimate reason for how they kind of went from wanting to do that to wanting to do radiology or IR, I mean, I would definitely lend an ear to that and consider that very seriously, especially if it seems like a genuine response, right? So I think that's the most important thing, as far as, even if you do have activities that don't necessarily end up lining up with the specialty that you end up applying for, a lot of it is going to be how you discuss them that will make the biggest impact on the interviewer. And that's really the most important thing. I mean, writing them on your application is one thing, but really it's when you discuss it during the interview that kind of nails it, really drives things home. Ian, do you want to add anything else as far as activities goes?
Yeah, I'll just comment on 2 or 3 points. So one thing that I'm really interested in is medical education. So when I was, getting involved in different stuff, I wanted it all to be kind of medical education relevant, because that's what I enjoy. So when you do an activity like become, let's say, chair of the research group at your medical school, and you can kind of host educational activities in my example, or later you get an opportunity because of things you did as a chair in the research group to maybe redesign a part of your school's curriculum. In my case, we got to redesign part of the ultrasound curriculum to make it a little bit more accessible for students and more accessible for the level that students are at coming in with ultrasound. You can kind of create a narrative of yourself as an applicant. So for me, a lot of my activities related to medical education, and I'm able to talk about that in my personal statement, talk about that in interviews, and it's backed up by the things that I pursued throughout medical school. So I would say, one, you can build a narrative through these activities, especially if it's one of your genuine interests. The second thing I'll say is, if you want to get involved in, let's say, like leadership at the national level in your specialty, it's really important to start early. Even if you think maybe I'm interested in radiology coming in, just like start volunteering with one of the national societies that can translate into a leadership position the following year. That will just like stack as you go throughout medical school and stay involved. The people who end up like as medical students in these really like crazy leadership positions are people who started on day one, maybe not even 100% sure they wanted to do that specialty, but they took a gamble. They gave like 1 or 2 hours a week to that specialty through that volunteer position. And then they slowly made their way up the ladder. So if you want to be like that person, to have that like really impressive leadership position on your application, you get that from starting on day one and just maybe like taking a shot and taking a risk. But if it ends up not being the specialty you do, it's still something that you can talk about, and it can be part of your journey anyway.
I love it. Yeah, no, I think these are all fantastic points to think about. Yeah, and then I think when you come into medical school on day one, there's all these clubs on campus. You're going to probably throw your name on a bunch, and I know like getting voted into them can often be like a popularity contest more than anything else. But try your best to show some level of involvement. I think when there's a will, there is a way to try to show involvement on campus, even if it means a lot of times starting your own. I think we started like the first ever IR interest group when I was a 4th year, and now like they're doing their own events, and like I'm speaking at them totally like that we started as like when I was like when I was early in my medical school. So it's super cool to see how you never know, you could start a small little thing that only a couple of people are interested in, and it can blossom into something bigger, and then you can discuss that, and people feel that people feel the genuineness and the emotion when you talk about it. So definitely don't shy away from those opportunities. And I think passion over anything else. In hindsight, if there's one thing I would change, because all of us actually on this panel applied before there was a ERAS cap of 10 experiences. So I think a lot of us, I'll speak for myself. I was a volume chaser. I wanted to have as many publications as possible. I wanted to have as many leadership things as possible. Like, I wanted to be as outstanding of an applicant as possible. And I think at that time, my perspective was volume equals excellence, right? If I have a lot of stuff, that means that I am going to be perceived as better than, versus compared to someone else applying, right? And I think in hindsight, that's so not true, because despite having a very long CV of stuff, I got asked about the same few things, right? And I was like, wow, nobody cares about these like small things that like were like either not related to the field, or like research that I did as, you know, research that I did that was also like older or whatever. Like, people don't care about that. People just care about the activities that were like more unique and more novel, and that I kind of talked about more passionately. So I think in the end, it's not a, you know, right now, I mean, it can't be a numbers game. There's only 10 experiences, right? But even so, having passion is going to be a really, really big, it's going to be a really, really big aspect about, you know, standing out on your interview. And that's really the most important thing. Sam, did you want to say something?
Yes, in your most recent point about the 10 experiences, that one sometimes it can be obvious that you were not a significant player in an event or a research group, because you're listing all these other names. And we all went through this. So reasonably, you don't have as much time. We know clinicals are hard. We know pre-clinicals are hard. The specific activity is very difficult. So when you have a laundry list of activities, you know, or at least the impression that you give to people reading your applications is that you don't have as large of a role compared to somebody who is a president of a club, for example. And this might not be the case. Maybe you're super like a super person who can do all of these things, but the vast majority of us, me included, you're not having a 100% role in every single activity that you're doing. So if you focus and narrow, then you can have a larger role, and it becomes more significant, and it is actually conveyed when you talk to somebody about it. So it is, to me at least, it's very obvious when people are in it 100% versus, oh, they volunteered an hour in this organization.
Absolutely. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's the truth. You know, we're residents, and then the attendings are only a couple of years ahead of us, right? We've all been through this. So yeah, I think genuineness is very important. All right. Let's talk about finding mentorship, right? So, you know, in order to kind of get somewhere, you always want to find someone who's already done it and get their help, right? And I think that whether that's a more formal setting, like through MatchPal, or whether that's through a more casual setting, you know, I think finding mentorship is paramount, no matter what specialty you're going into, no matter where you are in the competitiveness kind of spectrum, right? And, you know, I know like, you know, we offer structured mentorship for very focused and specific reasons, right? And there's for sure a role for that for all students. But at the same time, I'm never going to sit here and discount the fact that you should be talking to people besides from anyone that you talk to from our team. If you choose to work with us, right? You should be talking to upperclassmen. You should be talking to people who matched into your specialty from your school. How much time and energy they are going to give you is really going to be up to them, right? And that's where things like MatchPal come in and like are enhancers, because we're here because we want to give as much time as you need to whatever you need help with. But at the same time, you know, you should get as many perspectives as possible, right? So again, upperclassmen, people that matched into the specialty you want to go from your school. And then when you're on rotations as a third year, you should be talking to the residents, right? Those are valuable resources, right? In between rounds, while they're writing notes, asking them a question about applying or what they did or why they chose this, right? Getting those perspectives, I think, are just really important. I think one thing Ian mentioned about the organizations, I think a lot of people like don't realize that there's a ton of like free and actually very encouraging resources for medical students from every national society, right? So whether it's radiology, derm, peds, whatever it is, every specialty has a national society that's like a parenting body. And there's almost always an avenue for either mentorship or medical student involvement or some sort of thing that you can do to either get involved with the specialty or get contact information for someone who can help you in some way. even if it means getting on a Zoom call for 10 minutes with the program director of a program in your home city or state and asking them, hey, I'm a third year student. I want to do internal medicine. Can you tell me what I should do? Right? Is there anything you could tell me about if that's how you feel? Right? So just don't shy away from those opportunities. Send those emails. Find a lot of the times, especially for students coming from maybe an osteopathic background, you're not going to have these things on a silver platter. You're not going to necessarily have a program director in your specialty. I didn't have a radiology person or an IR person at my school, right? You had to go find it. It takes a little bit of extra work. You have to send a few extra emails. You got to do some digging, but it's there, right? Especially in the age of the internet, everything is very accessible. You just have to want to find it. I didn't want to dwell on this too much, but I think we talked a lot about this stuff. But if any of the panelists have something that they wanted to add, definitely happy to hear your perspectives.
I will say pretty much anyone, ahead of you in the pathway in your specialty would love to talk to you and give you advice. Not everyone has the time. If they don't respond to your email, it's not an insult. It's not them saying that you're like not worth their time. They just probably have like 100 unread emails and you're just another one. Maybe they have 10 for medical students. So there's nothing wrong with sending a bunch of cold emails out to people, especially if you don't have a home program. Send one out to a PD in your city, send one out to a potential research mentor in your city, a resident in your city, and meet them for coffee, meet them for a Zoom call. You really have nothing to lose and everything to gain from doing that.
I agree. All right. Last thing, I think we touched upon this already, but, let's just talk a little bit about research involvement that, we'll just talk about a couple of things that we didn't mention before. So Chris mentioned about how he found his research here and why he did his research here. The other thing that I will say is obviously, so I didn't do research here, but I published, a couple of manuscripts and a bunch of posters while I was in medical school. And I think, speaking from my own experience, again, I didn't do any of this research with my school because quite frankly, they lacked the infrastructure to support radiology or IR research. But I think I did the things that we just talked about. I asked upperclassmen first. So I actually did get a couple of projects by networking that way. And another thing that I did was going through the Society of IR, setting up a Zoom meeting, talking to a PD who then connected me with his resident and said, hey, this resident actually does a lot of projects. I think you should work with her and come up with a project, and I'll be the primary investigator, and we can, you guys can publish it, and it'll be great for your CV, and we'll also get to know you, right? And I actually ended up publishing with them. I ended up getting a sub-I for fourth year at that institution, ended up getting a letter of rec from there. So it really does feed into this continuity for the remainder of your medical school education, where you're able to kind of leverage those experiences for future opportunities, right? So one call can led to so much, right? One little chat saying, hey, I'm a third year medical student interested in an IR, led to a whole downstream slew of positive things. And by the way, I recently looked at that inbox. I sent 30 messages that day and 2 people responded. And one of them was this guy. You know what I mean? And it turned out to work out so well, right? So you will have, it's not going to be a one attempt equals one hit, but send out as many as you can tolerate and hope that, as all you need is one at the end of the day. Same thing with the match, honestly, right? You just need one program to accept you. So that's how it works. Anybody else want to talk about doing research as a medical student, finding activities, et cetera? I think we already talked about the thing about it being you really should publish research, right? Definitely don't do research that just doesn't go anywhere, right? If it's not a poster or an abstract or a publication, its currency, its value to us when we're evaluating you is very little. I'm not saying it's not nothing, but it's it's significantly different, right? And obviously a publication is better than a poster. So just keep that in mind too. Again, do the thing that we talked about earlier. Make sure the person you're talking to has published recently. Make sure they have ongoing projects. Make sure they're somebody who cares to publish, right? There are certain people who work in certain environments where their life is not incentivized to publish, right? And there's other people where they get protected time every week to only work on research, where they don't have to see patients, where they don't have to teach anyone, and all they have to do is produce research publications, right? That's the type of person that you would, in an ideal world, want to work with. So try your best to find those opportunities. But again, I babbled a little bit, so I'll open it back up to the panel for any other kind of tips as far as research goes. All right, cool. And I think Samantha, thanks for dropping that comment. I definitely agree. And you can go to a lot of conferences for free too, by the way, by joining your medical student organization and just subscribing for a conference, and they waive the registration fee. So that was it as far as the structured content. We wanted to leave some time for students to ask questions because, again, we know this is an intimate session. We know that everyone here is like, this is a free space, right? No one here is judging you. Like, we're doing this because we want to improve your experience, because this is a resource that we all wish we had when we were going through this in your shoes. So first of all, obviously, feel free to scan this code. Everybody here is eligible for a discount for any of our services, but you also have us all here. And we're all here for the next 15-20 minutes to answer any questions you have. So drop a message in the chat, raise your hand. I'm happy to unmute you. Let us know what other lingering questions that you have that would be helpful to talk about before we sign off for today. But otherwise, also thanks everyone for coming. This is great.
Do they have access to the chat? Are they able to message?
I just enabled
Yeah, so I think we enabled the chat, right, Ian?
just now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, anyone feel free to either type a question, raise a hand if you want to talk. It's, again, pretty, yeah. Feel free.
In the meantime, if no one has a question immediately, I'll also just say, similar to what Samantha's saying, and similar to what Dan was saying about, sending out cold emails, there's a lot of scholarships for attending conferences as well. Often your school might provide you financial assistance to do those opportunities, but the societies that host these conferences also provide those scholarships and that funding as well. There's no harm in applying. Apply every single year. You might get rejected 3 times and get it your senior year, and then it goes on ERAS. So that's well worth it. Apply for those leadership positions. Like, really apply for everything you can. How long does it take you to write that essay? You probably are just going to be watching, like a half-hour episode instead of your favorite show. So just do that once a month. Do that like application, that email, and eventually things will start paying off because it'll show that you're dedicated, and you'll be able to get those opportunities, and they'll stack up.
So true. There really are so many like low key like scholarships and things like that you can just, you can get by just applying, because people are just too lazy to apply to them. So just don't be that person, and then you get rewarded. All right, we have a question. Nick, I have a question regarding DO students into competitive specialties. Is there still overall bias, and is the best way to find experience that many DO schools may not have cold emailing locally? So I think I'm the only DO in the panel, right? Samantha, you're not DO, right? No, right? Okay, so I'll speak about this from personal experience. I do think there's still some bias. It's more at the top institutions, I think, more than I don't think it's a specialty thing. I think it's a top institution thing, right? I think competitive specialties are just competitive, right? But I think if you're a competitive applicant objectively, you still stand a chance to match. I matched into IR. I had colleagues match into derm. I had a person in my class match into neurosurgery. Are we matching into those specialties by the hundreds? No, but it's doable, right? If you put in the work, I do think it's possible to match into these positions, but you have to start early and you have to have a really good application. As far as finding experiences, cold emailing works, national societies work, because you can use the National Society database to find local people, right? That's kind of what I did. I didn't message people from like the West Coast. I'm from New York City, right? I didn't message people from the West Coast. I messaged people in like New York, the tri-state area, whatever, right? And then aside from cold emailing, I guess, I mean, that and like, upperclassmen that match into your specialty are really valuable, right? And if you don't have those, or for some reason, I think talking to people like someone from our team is a kind of a next natural step for getting further guidance to find opportunities. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add, but I think those are the things that come to mind for me.
If your school happens to have an alumni network in your specialty, that would be another really good person to reach out to you, who would probably give you a better response rate than a random person. But yeah, if you're going for something competitive, that might not exist. So it's tough.
All right. So Christina already said, believe it. Yeah. So yeah, the bias is, again, it would be lying to say that if it's completely equivalent. That's just the truth, right? So there's definitely going to be a bias, right? But I do think that bias is more readily felt at the more big name institutions because they have more applicants that want to go there, right? So inherently, when you have an instant, you have to put yourself in the program director's shoes, right? If you're a PD and you have 100 applications, you're more likely to for 10 positions, you're going to be more likely to consider like all 100 people, right? But if you're a PD and then you have 600 applications for 10 positions or 5 positions even, you're going to start having to make some sort of metric that's going to cut your stack of applications to review into smaller because you can't sit there and review all those applications all day, right? So things like scores start cutting people out, things like DO, IMG starts cutting people out. So I think the more selective the institution and specialty is, of course, the bias will be more apparent, right? But I think there are other specialties that are very, very kind of very not biased, right? So I think that does matter.
And Dan, one thing I think osteopathic students can do to kind of erase that bias is excelling on the USMLEs, right? And making sure you take step 1, step 2, pass step 1, and then knock step 2 out of the park. That's really going to be the best thing you can do to level the playing field.
Yeah, I mean, like your school, if you're in a DO school, there's a very strong chance they're telling you not to take USMLE. And I will tell you, I don't care who they are, what they're telling you, that is a load of nonsense, right? Like if you don't take
absolutely need to.
you and I don't care what specialty you're applying for, you need to take USMLE. That's my stance. Done. There's no question. I don't care what there's no situation in which the answer to that question changes, right? You take it just like everyone else if you want to be treated like everyone else. That's how it works.
Which is unfair, but that's just how it is.
It's unfair, but that's just how it is, right? Exactly. Ariel said, if you don't go to a pass-fail medical school, how do letter grades impact the residency options, especially for competitive specialties? Do you have to be in the top class, dean's list? So I did go to pass-fail preclinical. Anybody go to a graded preclinical school? I know Ian and Chris went to the same school. So. Samantha, did you?
I did have grades, and
you want to talk about this?
I think in general, as long like it wasn't broken down into specific numbers, like like 81 versus 82. It was very like, oh, if you were in the 80s, if you were in the 90s, like that was the biggest difference. That's a good question. I not really like I think it was important if you passed it. And people who got AOA, like they were very, very competitive to begin with. And so it did stand out more. So I wouldn't stress if you're a type of school that's like, oh, in 81 versus an 82. But if you're able to push yourself into that next letter grade, like do your best, because that can make a difference. And I know we talked about breaking into your next specialty. So we didn't really talk about sub-Is, for example, but if you're financially able to and you have the time, I would encourage you to do sub-Is, especially in competitive places, because it then you can then break into an area maybe that your family's not from, maybe your medical school isn't there, or maybe you didn't have, maybe that wasn't a school that is your home institution for rotations, for example. And so then they can actually see how you are and possibly get a letter of recommendation. So more people outside of your home institution can see how you act, and that can make you stand out too.
And Ariel, I think a big thing is going to be talking to upperclassmen at your school, maybe having them show you a copy of their dean's letter, so you can see how grades at your school are actually reported. That's how a residency is going to interpret your performance at your school. What does the transcript look like? What does the dean's letter look like? So is the preclinical grade just converted into quartiles? In which case, yeah, like being in a high quartile, if that's a consideration for AOA, yeah, that's really important. You want to get AOA if it's possible. If you're at an osteopathic medical school, obviously you don't have AOA, but any honor societies, any things that show up on your dean's letter are things that the residency programs are really going to be focusing on. So yes, the answer is yes, it's important. if your school is reporting it. If your school is kind of concealing that information, yeah, it's not as important. You need to see what the dean's letter looks like so you know how residencies are going to interpret that, and do your best to be in the upper quartiles of your class and get those honor societies.
Yeah. If you listen, the truth is this: better grades are never going to hurt you. That's just the truth, right? So if you can, do your best. If you can't, still try. But at the end of the day, better grades will never go against you, right? So they're always worth pursuing. That kind of ties in with Nick's follow-up question with GPA and stuff. I mean, again, obviously higher is better, but I think we just kind of addressed that. Taking step 2 and not step 1. So that's a phenomenal question. Probably the hardest question to answer without this next round of match data that not you, but like whoever's applying this current cycle is going to generate for us. I'm really curious about this because when it was scored, the answer was always take both exams, no questions asked. Now it's like, I understand where people come from when they say this, right? Because I think step 2 is mandatory. Step 1 is like, all right, well, there's no score. Complex is pass fail. Do we really need to spend $800? If I was, let's just put it this way. If I was applying right now, I would be taking both exams for both series, right? Are there some specialties where you can maybe get away with it? Probably, right? But I wouldn't take the risk only because it's pass fail. So if you put in the work, it really shouldn't be a hard exam to pass, right? I mean, again, over 90% of people have been passing this exam for decades. So, the odds are in your favor. And then the second thing is like, do you want that to potentially limit your options as far as getting considered for residency? I mean, I wouldn't, and again, I think there's some specialties that might not care about this as much, and I could totally see that. But I think that there are others that would be either filtering people out because of this, or just like maybe, I don't know, just maybe like not giving you enough consideration as you deserve otherwise because you didn't take the exam. And then it's just like, is it worth it, right? So in my opinion, I would just take the exam personally. You have more to lose than you have more to gain than to lose.
And let's put it this way. So Dan's talking about program directors are filtering, right? They're going to filter by a step cutoff. They're going to filter by a complex cutoff. They're going to filter by whatever they can use to get the number of applications down. If they're filtering by pass fail on step 1 and you don't have a pass, you might get filtered out. Do you really want to entrust these program directors to go through those 5,000 apps and look for the people who didn't take step 1 and add them into their interview consideration pile? I would personally wouldn't trust program directors to do that.
It's not going to happen.
Where I come from.
The only way that's going to happen is that the 1 or 2 programs that you have an actual relationship with that you're rotating at, those places will pick your name out of a stack to interview. Otherwise, random program, not going to happen for any reason, whether it's USMLE or otherwise. It's just, once you get filtered out, that's where you're going to stay. Because again, the PDs are not like, I think this is a misconception that I didn't understand, and maybe it's a valuable perspective to share. Like, the PD is still a full-time practicing physician, right? They're not like a 100% administrator who can just read applications all day and hang out, and they have they're like one of the busiest people in the hospital, right? Because they are full-time clinical. They do cases, they're in the OR, whatever specialty they're doing, they're rounding. And then on top of all that, they have to figure out how to fill their residency spots with the best caliber candidate that they can attract, right? So they're going to work in an efficient way, right? That's where the filters came from. The filters came from improving the efficiency of their job as PD. So, don't rely on that, like Ian was saying, is the bottom line. And put yourself, whenever you have a question about about a PD's perspective, just put yourself in the shoes of someone who has to review 500 applications for 10 positions. And then think about, what does your natural instinct tell you that you would do if you have 2 kids at home, 40 patients in clinic to see, and you're like, how the hell am I going to do this in 2 weeks? That's probably what they're doing, because they're humans just like we all are, right? So I think that's a really good like thing to think about that I honestly never thought about until I sat down with a program director on a sub-I and they explained this to me. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, because I just thought you had some other crazy secretive way of doing this, but it's not. Like, they're just humans and they're just trying to stay afloat with this process, just like we are. All right, we're approaching the end. It's 9 o'clock. Maybe one last question. Let's see. From Nicole. Let's see. As residents, now that you're on the other side, helping evaluate pet peeves, any common mistakes that students make? Oof, I love that question, Nicole. Thanks for asking it. So, I don't know. Samantha is a fellow, so she's definitely seen the most students. And like, I don't know, Samantha. I know you have to log off, so maybe I'll answer this and let you go.
It's going back to my previous point. Don't stretch the truth or your involvement in something, because now you're being ingenuine and I can see right through it, because it's very obvious. So don't stretch the truth. And also, don't put anything in your application that you are not ready to talk about. So this might have been the biggest activity of your life, but if you don't remember that research project that you did or the nitty gritty, everything is fair game. And so you might have a cardiologist who, even though you're applying for orthopedics, who's interviewing you, and that's their niche, and you can't talk about it because this activity was from 6 years ago. Don't put it in there. Don't put it in there. And then I guess vice versa too. For putting things into your application, talk to somebody who knows you, but also can be objective in the sense of, oh, you did all these things. And in your mind, you might not think it's a significant activity. But to me, if somebody's applying PEDS and and maybe they did a specific activity that they didn't think was significant, I'd be like, no, I want you to put that in there. You talked so much about it with me and it was significant. So on the flip side, put that stuff in there. So I think that's my biggest pet peeve. But
I love that. Thank you, Sam. By the way, feel free. I know you have to go for something, so feel free to go, and we can hang out with the rest of answer the rest of the questions. Pet peeve. Yeah, I don't know. Chris, you got a pet peeve? I think I think you had a pet peeve. So me and Chris did intern year together. I've seen a couple of his pet peeves, but I don't know if you want to share any. I mean, I think unprofessionalism is a huge pet peeve. Like, you have to know your place and know your role in the hospital, right? You got to know who you are. And like, if you're a third year or sub-I, like, you can being buddy with people is great and all, but there's also like a line. So I think walking that line and being professional is really important. So like being unprofessional to the point where, like, if you're don't tell residents what to do. Don't say no. Like, most of the time, most residents are asking you to do something pretty reasonable and simple. Don't say no to it. Don't be like standoffish. You know what I mean? And don't be rude. Just like basic stuff. Common sense isn't that common, I guess, because unfortunately, I've seen this, but like, you know what I mean? Like that, those are like my biggest things at the end of the day. And like, yeah, I know not every specialty is going to be interesting to everyone. So, I don't expect people to like fake interest. Honestly, I really don't. But I think professionalism for me is my biggest ick.
I think something to keep in mind is it's much better to have all the residents have like a neutral or a good opinion on an applicant, rather than have just even 2 residents have like a bad opinion on an applicant. So we've had in our intern year, we've had a couple like medical students that we really liked. We thought they were really cool, but a couple of our co-residents didn't like them, and then that impacted their their application a lot more. And it's a little bit unfortunate, but it's just like, even a little bit of negativeness, even if it's not your fault, even if it's just like personality mismatch, can be bad. So I would be like, on my rotations, probably try to tone it down, err on the side of being neutral without being like, weirdly, awkward or something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree, Chris. And yeah, it is really crazy how like one person's negative, I guess, review of you can and will tank your performance. And I think that actually goes back to the initial point. Like, it is so easy to just be like, hey, that person wasn't good. And then the PD is like perfect. One less person that I have to like even think about considering to this program. You know what I mean? So like it literally becomes that simple. So yeah, just try to, you never know. Like they say, like, you know, you never know who's watching you. You never know who like can provide feedback to someone that might matter. So when you're there, you don't have to walk on eggshells, but just don't think of anyone as like not someone that you should be respectful to and trying to be helpful for. So those are probably like just good practice in general.
Yeah. Most residents are, in general, have been in your shoes recently. They're not going to be super judgmental. We're just saying, like, as long as you stay professional, you're kind, you care about patient care, people are gonna get along great with you. And you know, be reasonable about like your level of let's say fraternizing with the residents, because if you take it too far, you misread something, it can kind of come off wrong sometimes. But I would say a pet peeve that I have, more so evaluating applications, is you're applying a specialty and you're like talking about stereotypes, or you're generalizing about the specialty, or you're kind of missing a lot of the nuance. Let's say someone's applying radiology and they're talking about never seeing patients again. That's really not true, for one, because you're going to have to communicate through the radiology reports to patients. You're going to have to answer phone calls, talk to patients and providers. You're going to have to do procedures on patients. So don't like get the nuanced understanding of your specialty, have someone in the specialty review all your writing about it. And don't be talking about stereotypes. Don't be doing stuff like that, because it just comes off kind of poorly.
Yeah. I think it's a great place to kind of put a pin in it. Let's call it. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you to Ian and Chris and Samantha who signed off. You guys are great. Reach out to us if you have any questions. We're always happy to answer them over email, Instagram, whatever it is. So and obviously if you want to work with us, just scan the form and we'll set up a time to do a free consultation. So thanks again for coming, and we'll be doing another event soon. See you guys.